Well, hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about what it was like growing up Gen X. Because, it's exploding all over YouTube. And hey, I got my stories too. Now, before anybody says anything, yes, I was born in 1960. But being Gen X is not about a birthday. It's more about what your life was like and the experiences you had. I definitely experienced life as a Gen X. And it has shaped my personality today. Now, today I have boomer moments. Like, oh my God, somebody help me use the copy machine, okay? Those kind of moments I have now. But the person that I am at my core was definitely shaped by being a Gen X. Let me tell you my stories, and you tell me if you have had any of the same experiences. If you're interested, let's get on with it. Okay, when my mom and stepfather got married, I was 5, my sister was 3, and my brother had just been born. Okay? So they bought a house in, I guess you could say, well, they bought a house in the city. Not the ghetto, but it was definitely an African American working class neighborhood. So these houses all had garages in the backyard. So you didn't really have a backyard. You had a walkway to get to the garage. Some of the people used their garages as garages. Some of the people used their garages as sheds. One of the garages had just totally caved in and the person never did anything about it. And then there were my parents, who are both legally blind and don't have a car. So they tore their garage down. Oh, and side note, for those of you who wonder what's wrong with my eyes, I found out 2 years ago that I have the same eye disease that my mother had that led to her blindness. The only difference is hers didn't get caught in time. They caught mine in time. My eyes look bad, but as long as I continue to take my medicine, we can save my sight. So there you are. So anyway, my parents tore their garage down and completely concreted the entire backyard, except for a 3-foot wide path from the house to the bottom of the gate, because they put up a gate for the dog, because we've always had a dog. I found out later, when I'm old enough to understand these things, when my parents sold that house, they actually got an additional $8,000 over the price they had originally wanted, because the realtor they hired said, let's emphasize why having a concreted yard is great. And basically, all he had to do was explain to them how we used it. We learned to ride our bikes out there. We learned to roller skate out there. We played basketball out there. My father put up some hoops. We played jacks. We played hopscotch. We played dodgeball. Basically, my parents wanted us to have a place to play so we wouldn't play on the street. The kids would stand outside our gate and ask to come in and play. Now, when you're an 8-year-old and there are kids that are nice to you at school and there are kids that are not nice to you at school, well, you don't really particularly want to invite them into your yard to play. But if you don't, the first time you step your foot out that yard, you're going to get your ass beat. That's a lot of pressure for an 8-year-old. A lot of pressure. So yeah, there were certain kids I didn't want to come into my yard. And so I did my best to avoid them, and there were times when I was afraid to leave my yard, okay? So one day, oh God, one day I'm out the yard with the kids I like, and we have this little gang. Mind you, I'm 8 years old, and the garage is only 3 houses down from my house. Imagine this set of garages with no roofs. So in order to get into my little 8-year-old gang, you have to be willing to walk along the edge of that garage. And remember, it has no roof. So basically it's 3 walls and nothing. If you walk along the edge of that garage, you get to join the group. Well, I've dragged my feet for weeks about walking that garage. And then one day we were out and we were all playing. And here come the people I know that don't like me. And since I'm not in the mood to get my ass beat, I climbed the rocks and I walked the edge of that damn garage. I am pretty sure that's where my fear of heights comes from right today. But even they had to give me my props for doing that. And from that moment on, they never bothered me again. But this is the kind of stuff that makes me Gen X, okay? Absolutely makes me Gen X. So, it was also about this time that Martin Luther King got assassinated. So at that point, we still lived in the city, and there were National Guard troops everywhere. And my parents realized they really wanted to move. So when they did sell the house and they were able to get the additional money because of the concreted yard, they realized they could pay off the house and they had enough for a down payment on a house in the suburbs. So we moved to the suburbs. And at this point is when I say that all three, myself and my two siblings, our life changed. Because all of a sudden we weren't sequestered in the backyard, so to speak, for our own safety. Now we had room to roam because my parents felt like it was safe. Now here's the thing that just about all Gen Xers agree on, and that is getting along with all nationalities. Remember, I'm born in 1960. Even though I'm supposed to be a boomer, I am more like a Gen Xer. My sister was born in 1962. He is actually more like a boomer. And my brother is born in 1965. He is supposed to be an Xer, and he was a Generation Xer. We all had different personalities. Even though we all grew up in the same home, under the same circumstances, because we moved to the county and because we had so many opportunities open to us, we were able to choose the path that we wanted to go down, as opposed to a path that was predetermined for us. And I feel like had we stayed in the city, our path would have been predetermined. But moving out to the county gave us a lot more options. My sister is very much a traditionalist, liberal, and an old soul. My brother is very much an opportunist, and there's really no other way to say it. And me, I'm conservative. So we look at things differently. We even problem solve differently. But the thing is, we all know how to problem solve. Because when you have as much freedom as my parents gave us because they felt it was safe, and I have to agree with my parents, I never ever felt unsafe. Now there's freedom. My brother and I both got bikes, and we're riding our bikes all over the place. You know, the bookmobile would come to the local Catholic church, and every week a gang of us would ride to the church lot, as we called it, okay, and get some books from the bookmobile, hang out for a while, laugh, talk, read our books, and then we all had to beat it back home because, yes, we had to be home before the street lights came on. And then the next week we'd do it all again. We would cross a creek to take a shortcut to school if we missed the school bus. I'll be honest with you all. My brother and myself will be the first ones to tell you that we did not feel any racism. My brother was the only African American on the wrestling team. He was the only African American in his little motorcycle gang until others joined. What did I do? Oh my God, I did safety patrol, student council, and I played the violin. There really wasn't a lot of African Americans around the activities I chose either. Now my sister, she was different. She would have one friend, they would be black, and she wouldn't really do any other activities, although we were both in Girl Scouts and majorettes, whereas my brother and I both got bikes and rode around with our friends. My sister never got a bike. Her idea of mingling was to go to her black friend's house and hang out in their basement with her. Whereas my brother and I, we had multiple friends, and our idea of hanging out with our friends was to go out on our bike and meet up with them. So, you know, we're all so different. But the one thing I will say, and because my brother and I we were able to acclimate. It was a little harder for my sister, but we were able to acclimate. So we look at the world a little differently. Like I myself, I have never thrown down the race card. I have absolutely never thrown down the race card. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an example of something that happened at work and how I chose to handle it as opposed to how others may have chosen to handle it. Okay? But again, it's because of the way I was raised. My parents, while they weren't friendly with the neighbors or anything, um, if there was a problem, they knew that they could go to either neighbor on either side, because they were white families and lived on either side of us, or he could go to the neighbor across the street who was African American. And see, when we moved into this neighborhood, there was only one African American family there, and that's the family that was across the street. And that's the family my sister made friends with their daughter. They were the same age. I would say within 10 years' time, when we first got there, there was only one African American family, and then us. Within 10 years' time, it was probably 60% African American. Because, yeah, a lot of white people moved out, but a lot of white people didn't. And so there was always that mix. And I don't ever remember anything racist coming up. And I don't remember my parents ever talking about anything racist coming up. Because you know how parents were. If they were going to talk about stuff like that, they'd be at the kitchen table with their heads together, whispering. Nope, I don't remember any of that. And they never warned us that you need to be careful of certain people. They never said that to us. And it never came up. So maybe that's why I'm the way I am. My sister got a government job, okay, which is what a traditionalist would do. She got a government job. She doesn't have any white friends except the people she has to work with. That's just who she is. My brother he owns a garage, a mechanic. He's had his business longer than me. And if you walk in his shop, he's got black, white, Hispanic, everything but a woman working there. Because his thing is, I don't care. As long as you don't steal, because then I'm going to have to go to jail, and as long as you don't get me sued. Me, when I had my business, all of my employees were white. So we all look at things differently, and we all still grew up in the same household. It's so crazy. But no, I would say part of the reason why I didn't do well when I first got to Amazon is because I was used to having freedom in my life. Just like my brother is used to having freedom. My sister's not used to having freedom, and she be trying to buck that system every chance she get. But she prefers the security, so, buck it or not, she ain't gonna try to do too much. So, growing up Gen X makes you different. It just makes you a little bit more tolerant. But also you can detect bullshit when you see it. And so then you have to figure out how to handle it. Because sometimes meeting head to head doesn't work. Sometimes you got to figure out a way to go around it. I think Gen X is really good at figuring out how to go around things. And I think that's our problem solving skills. And we learned that having so much time on our own. Because my mother went to work when I turned 15. Up until then, she had been a stay-at-home parent, mother. But once I turned 15, she got a job outside the household. So that's when we really had to learn some self-sufficiency. And I guess that's it. But nope, I basically consider myself and my brother Gen Xers. I consider my sister a boomer. Okay? So that's my Gen X story. Oh, and here's that thing that I wanted to tell you that happened at work and how I chose to handle it. We had an incident at work. And something about racism came up. And nobody wants to have that kind of thing at work. So, they asked a couple random people, and I was one of the random people they asked, do you feel like there's racism here? And my answer was, no, not really. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of assholesness here and a lot of favoritism, but I don't feel like there's racism. And I said, plus racism is hard to prove. I said, even if somebody says something that was kind of suspect, if 5 people heard him say it, at least 3 people would say, well, maybe it was taken out of context, because nobody wants to accuse someone else of being racist. But if somebody acts like an asshole in front of 5 people and you go, do you think he was being an asshole? I guarantee you all 5 people will go, yep, that was an asshole move. Because see, nobody minds calling you out for that. But people are a little bit hesitant to call out racism. So no, I have never, and I hope I never have to throw down the race card, but I've slapped that assholeness card down so many times, wham! That it's just not funny. Take care, stay blessed. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.